Peace and light, family. I hope that you are well. I just finished eating an Uncrustable, okay? So excuse me if I be trying to savor the remnants, you know? If you don't eat Uncrustables, what is you doing? Okay, the strawberry ones, though, not the grape. The strawberry Uncrustables, that's where it's at. Okay, that's where it's at. It's where it's at. Go get you a sample. They sell a little 4 box. Go get you a little 4 box. Them strawberry Uncrustables is a problem out here in these streets. Okay, go get you a taste. I'm putting you on if you ain't been on. You ain't gotta have kids to enjoy it. Don't let the kids be an excuse. Just enjoy it. But I hope that y'all are well, family. I'm coming to you to answer a question that I get quite often. And I feel like uh, uh, it's important to address this question because a lot of people, depending on how they go about this process, a lot of people can make their journey a lot harder than what it needs to be. And when I say their journey, I'm talking about their journey into African spirituality, their journey of African traditional religion. If you try to cheat this process, your journey will be much more difficult than it needs to be. So, what am I talking about? I am creating this video, or my intention with this video is to answer the question, how do I find out who is my head Orisha? How do I find out who has my head? Who is the head Orisha that I'm supposed to go to? Who has my head? This is the question that is constantly coming up, and rightfully so. Simply because a lot of people, when they find out that it's possible to have a head Orisha, they become intrigued, and it makes them feel like they are deeper in their journey, and I'm going to explain why that is. So my overall intention for this video is to, number one, explain what does it mean? What is a head Orisha, and what does that mean? Number two, how do you go about finding out who is your head Orisha? And number three, why is this information important? Why is it important to know who is your head? Okay, so that is my intention for this video. Now let's get into it. Now, it is believed that every person has a head Orisha. A head Orisha is simply like the parent Orisha. Who is the Orisha that you are a child of? It is believed that before you are born, which this is important because when I talk about how do you know who has your head, this part is important. It is believed and stated that before you are born, you are assigned a head Orisha, and you are birthed through that Orisha. So people will say, oh, I am Omo Oshun, or I am Omo Shango. Omo is Yoruba for child of. So that means that they are saying that their head Orisha is Oshun. They were birthed to this world through Oshun. Yes, you come through your physical parents, but there is an Orisha who is your godly parent, or your Orisha parent, right? And they are supposed to be your head. They cover your crown. They are your guiding light Orisha. They are your lead Orisha. They are the Orisha that you would go to first before you go to other Orishas, so on and so forth. So it's like your parent Orisha. That is what it means to have a head Orisha. So when people say, I want to know who has my head, essentially they're saying, I want to know who is my parent, who was I birthed to, who leads me, who guides me. That is essentially the question that they are asking. Who is my head Orisha? Now, finding out who is your head Orisha is really depending on the ATR that you choose, the African traditional religion that you choose. Every pathway has a different time period in which you can find your head Orisha. For example, for some pathways, in order you don't get assigned your head, or you don't find out who is your head Orisha until you are on the journey of becoming a priest or a priestess of that pathway, right? For example, in Lukumi, in most Lukumi houses, in the Lukumi tradition, you don't find out who is your head Orisha until you are on the journey of initiation into becoming a priest or a priestess, okay? In certain other ATRs, you may find out when you are in your initial initiation phase, when you are, first initiating and you are becoming a practitioner. For some people, you don't find out until you receive your hand of Ifa. For some people, they find out as soon as they receive their elekes, which is like, when they are on the first process of initiation, which receiving your elekes is also a process within itself. You shouldn't receive all your elekes at one time. You are usually so initiation is very different depending on the ATR that you are in, the tradition that you are in, and where you are initiating, all that good stuff. So as you guys know, I traveled the world studying African spirituality, African traditional religions. When I was in Ghana, I was studying a Khan religion, and their initiation process into a Khan is very different and very unique, very strenuous. It's a long process. When I was in Cuba, I was studying Santeria, and initiation there is a process, you know. So all of it is a process, and depending on the tradition that you are in, it differs per tradition of when you would exactly find out who has your head. Again, for some traditional religions, you don't find out until you are on the journey of becoming a priest or a priestess. For other traditional religions, you may find out during or after your first initiation into the tradition, right? So whatever the tradition is called, for some people it's your Awo year, for some, whatever, you may find out then, but you don't normally find out until after you start your initiation process. And a lot of people get irritated about that. I remember I made a video about, I forgot exactly what the topic of the video was, and I was saying well, you won't really know that until initiation. And somebody in the comments was like, why do we always have to wait till initiation? Like, it shouldn't take initiation for us to find out this information. And I will say this, and I always make this comparison, but you wouldn't go out here and buy a Delta shirt, a Delta Sigma Theta shirt, and just be rocking the shirt unless you have fully crossed and pledged and crossed. You would not do that. Trying to find out your Head Orisha before you go through initiation is like buying that Delta Sigma Theta shirt and going to rock that. Going to buy lekes out the store and putting on them lekes is like going to buy a Q hat and a Q jacket and walking around, or getting branded and walking around branded, and you ain't even crossed yet. You ain't even online yet. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's what it is like. And the reason I make that comparison is because it truly, truly baffles me how people have so much respect for Greek organizations, Greek religions, really. Because if you study Greek sororities and fraternities, they have gods and goddesses that are heads of their sororities and fraternities. And with all due respect to them, I give respect to them, but I also give respect to what we have and what we started. ATR is the same way. It really baffles me how people have this respect and reverence for Greek stuff, but will quickly disrespect and want to take the shortcut to ATRs. You know what I'm saying? So again, please understand and respect the process, because when you don't, I promise you it will not go well for you. You may think it is going well. Trust me, I've seen it multiple times. 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, it's gonna catch you. And when you out here and you think you know who your head is, and you think you got your lekes, and you still feeling lost, and you still feeling like you in a fog, and you keep building and then it crumbles, and then you build and then it crumbles, and it builds and then it crumbles, and you don't know why you can't find steady stability over a 10, 15, 20-year period, and you constantly in a cycle of up and down, up and down, up and down, know that you try to take that shortcut. Some things require initiation, and I know that this may sound harsh, but that's just what it is. Oftentimes, to find your Head Orisha, you need to begin initiation. So, how do you begin initiation? The first thing you need to do, and this goes back to me explaining in the beginning of, your Head Orisha, it is believed that you are assigned a Head Orisha, or you are given to an Orisha before birth. So this is why it's important to start with knowledge of self. I'm sorry, y'all, my bracelets keep shaking. I keep moving my hands, so my bracelets are shaking. I hope it's not too loud in the mic. But essentially, with knowledge of self, is so important of studying yourself before you try to go get divination for a head, or before you even start your initiation process, because a lot of your work will be done once you know who you authentically are. Right? So you have to think about it. You are given to an Orisha. You are birthed through an Orisha before you are birthed into physically into this world. So, in order to know who has your head, you have to know your authentic self. You have to know what your genuine, authentic attributes are. And that way you can understand and connect your attributes to a specific Orisha. If you go back and look at my shadow work video, I explain how oftentimes as adults, we don't realize that we haven't done our shadow work. We don't realize how much our environment has affected our authentic self, how much our upbringing and trauma, childhood experiences, societal expectations has affected our authentic self. Your attributes that you have currently may not even be who you authentically are. Your personality traits, your character traits, that may not even be who you authentically are. To know who your head Orisha is, you need to do your shadow work so that you can connect with your authentic self and then connect that to Orisha. You see what I'm saying? Because what happens is, just like your physical parents, when you are birthed through an Orisha, you will carry a lot of their attributes. You will carry a lot of their traits. So in the video I did on Oshun, I explained how like a lot of Oshun's children, they are just naturally sensual people. They're naturally desirable people. They're naturally into the fine arts and humanities. They naturally have a keen sense of divination and intuition. They are naturally dreamers. Most of them, their spiritual gifts are dreamers. They're, again, highly intuitive, so a lot of clairvoyance. And they've been this way since they were kids, because your childhood self is your most authentic self. Your childhood self, and when I say childhood, I'm speaking young, like 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Those very early childhood years are your true authentic self, because that's the time period before society can hit you, before society fully impacts you, before you start bending and maneuvering and adapting to your environment. And your environment, meaning your household, wherever you grew up, before these spaces start to shape you, your authentic self is in those early childhood years. So a lot of times you have to do shadow work before you can even begin to find out who your head Orisha is, simply because you need to know your authentic self. So step 1 is gain knowledge of self. Get to know who you authentically are so that you can see what attributes you have and how those attributes may be connected to your parent Orisha. For example, if you know that during childhood, and you can ask questions to your family as well, but still do your shadow work. But if you know that during childhood you was a person who loved to dance, you easily maneuvered in certain spaces, you had a lot of warrior energy, a lot of strength energy, you were a strong-willed child, you may be almost Shango. Those are natural attributes towards Shango, right? Shango was a dancer, strong-willed, sometimes stubborn in his own way. You may be almost Shango. As I said earlier, if you were a child who, when you walked in the room, you grabbed all the attention, a child who was naturally smooth and graceful, finesse, you may be almost Oshun. If you were mischievous, if you were a trickster child, if you was always trying to get over, very playful child, you may be Omo Legba. You may be a child of a Legba. So he's the trickster. So again, get to know who you authentically are, get to know knowledge of self, and then see if you can connect some of those attributes to your Orisha. Once you start studying yourself and you kind of get an idea of who may have your head, please understand that just because you think someone has your head, it's just an idea. You don't know for sure. More often than not, a lot of people think that they know who has their head, but then they go and they go through their process and they get their divination and they end up finding out that their head is completely different than who they thought it was. And most often it's because who you think has your head is based on not your authentic self. It's based on your adapted self. It's based on how you presently are and after you adapted to your environment and the person you became, but not really your authentic self. So usually if you try to do this without going through the process of shadow work and knowledge of self, you will even assign yourself the wrong Head Orisha. Okay, so that's why it's important to do your shadow work so that you can have an idea based on your authentic self of who has your head. And it's good to already go in knowing who you think has your head, so that way as you get your divination, you can kind of compare and contrast based on what they tell you and what you think as well. But again, don't become too attached to that idea. Step 2, and really this is not even step 2. This is kind of step 1, and step 1 should have really been step 2. So this is kind of step 1, and step 2 would be knowledge of self. Step 1 is you need to study all of the Orisha. Study every single Orisha. And this is important because oftentimes people get introduced into African spirituality and they get introduced into ATRs, and they find an Orisha that appeals to them, or an Orisha that they think that they are more attracted to, and they feel like this Orisha has their head. And I find out that it's really because you don't know anything about the other Orishas, right? And Oshun is usually one of these Orishas. Yemeya is usually one of these Orishas. Obatala is usually one of these Orishas that a lot of people, they find out about these Orishas and they get attracted to them and they start studying them, and then they kind of just glaze over the other Orishas, but they don't really build relationship. It's important to build relationship with all of the Orishas and get to know all of the Orishas, because even though you may have a Head Orisha, every Orisha is still a part of your journey and still a part of your life. So yes, you have a Head Orisha, but you still need to know and connect with all of them. And that's also a part of the process of initiation and receiving your lekes, right? This is why you don't receive all your lekes at once. I personally, I wish I could go in more detail, but it would be disrespectful of me to go in more detail about the process of receiving your lekes and all of that, but you can kind of like get the hint of what I'm saying as far as you don't receive all your lekes all at one time. And it's important that you study every single Orisha, because when you are in initiation, you will not receive all of your lekes if you are not aware and fully abreast of every single Orisha. And I'm not just talking about overviews, I'm talking about detailed about the life and journey of every single Orisha into Orishahood, right? So study every single Orisha. Study every single Orisha. Study every single Orisha. I cannot say that enough. Fully study. Read as many stories, as many books. Understand, how did Shango get elevated into Orishahood, because he was not originally an Orisha. How did Shango get elevated? It's a lot of things that you have to know when you are really going through the real process. So study every single Orisha, because oftentimes I'll have a client and they'll be like, I think such and such has my head. And I'll be like, well, why do you think that? And they'll tell me. And I'm like, okay, well, what do you think about Ogun? That sounds kind of Ogun. Tell me about Ogun. And they're like, he's the green one, right? I'm like, go study Ogun. You don't know who has your head, because you don't know all of them. You need to study the entire line of Orisha. And trust me, there are many Orishas, but of course, many people focus on the main 7 popular Orishas. So it's important to study every single Orisha so you can have a strong idea of who you are truly connected to. It's easy to say you feel a connection to or feel drawn to one when you are only aware of 3, or you are drawn to one when you are only aware of that one. Study all of them. That is important. And the reason why it's even more important to know all Orisha, because listen to this part. Okay? Listen to this part. It's important to know all Orisha because during different times in your life, and depending on what is happening in your life, different Orishas may carry you through different circumstances and through different journeys. Different Orishas are over different energies and different experiences and different environments and different moments. So various Orishas may be carrying you through certain moments and through certain journeys in your life. Okay, so you may be drawn to a specific Orisha because that is a space that you are in, that they are over. What's happening in your life is connected to them. For example, if you are in a transition period in your life, if you are going through a lot in your life and you're feeling lost and you don't really know what's going on, you may feel a lot of Oya energy. that is Oya energy. Even if you live somewhere where it rains a lot, where it storms a lot, that is Oya energy, right? So this is why it's important. If you're in somewhere in its rain season, you may feel a heavy presence of Oya or a heavy presence of Shango, right? That's what they do. You know what I'm saying? So this is why it's also important to study all the Orisha, because you may feel a strong connection. You may feel strongly drawn to a certain Orisha, but you are drawn to them because they're carrying you through this moment in life right now. And I'm going to give you a big example. What happens a lot, especially for new initiates are often assigned Yemeya or Obatala. You have to remember, Yemeya is the mother, Obatala is the father. So when you are new into Orisha tradition, you are pure, you are fresh. So it is warranted that Obatala will be carrying you and introducing you as new to this journey, or Yemeya may be carrying you and may be introducing you and mothering you through the beginning of your journey. So that will happen a lot. Now, the final step before you find out who your Head Orisha is a really big step, and that is starting your initiation process. Now, to start your initiation process, it really just depends on what ATR you are going to, where you are located, and what initiation looks like for that specific ATR. As I stated earlier, every ATR is different, and finding out who is your Head Orisha is different for every ATR. So really, it just depends on where you are located. Whatever ATR you are attracted to, when I say ATR, I'm talking about African traditional religion. Whichever religion you are attracted to, you need to find a community wherever you live. So the sister who asked the question in the Wellness Community group chat, I was like, she lives in Atlanta. I was like, Atlanta has a very large Orisha community. Reach out, but find a community where you live. And once you find a community where you live, you can start, filling out different houses or ilays and looking into, maybe being adopted by godparents. So in most African traditional religions, you get godparents, right? And these are like your physical parents. So your Head Orisha is your spiritual parent, and then you have godparents who are like your physical parent here on earth. And these godparents will walk you through the process of initiation. And that can look different for every ATR. So I don't want to go into detail about what they should and should not be doing. I probably will create a separate video on how to know whether you have good godparents or you may want to stay away from that house, because there are a lot of red flags and there are a lot of green flags on whether or not you have good godparents. But step 3 is you want to start your initiation process by finding community wherever you live. Find the Orisha community where you live, or people who are already a part of the ATR that you are looking into joining, and really start asking around about good godparents. And you don't really want to, I wouldn't really even say start asking around, but just start going to the events and, every single event. I'm speaking about even if they have an art show, right? Go to the art show. If they have a dinner, go to the dinner, go to the events that they throw and that they attend, and just join conversations and see who you're really drawn to, see who you naturally feel comfortable with, who feels like a good spiritual guide, who's not asking you for money and offerings all the time, right? And things like that, who's not trying to solicit you for things. That's what you really want to do. And though once you find people that you are attracted to, a house that you are attracted to, then, you can look into starting your process of initiation, which initiation, the length of time differs for different ATRs, but it can go on for years. In some ATRs, years. So this is not a quick process. So I don't want you to look at this video and a lot of people, they're eager and they want to find out who has their head now. That's why I said the authentic process is the long process, because sometimes for some ATRs, you don't find out until the end of initiation. Some of them you find out during your initiation. Some of them you don't even find out until with your initial initiation. You don't find out until you start initiating as a priest or a priestess. So the next level of initiation, you know what I'm saying? But this is just the genuine process. And this is usually the process when you go through the process in the original birthplace of these ATRs, right? So that's usually the process. They're not just handing out Head Orishas. They will to tourists, though. I will tell you, I've seen it with my own eyes. As a matter of fact, I'm going to tell y'all something. When I was in Ghana, my mentor in Ghana, like I said, I was studying a con while I was in Ghana, and my mentor there was a tourist girl who came over, and she was like asking him a lot of questions, and she was just like, I need God. And she wasn't necessarily, asking about like a head or anything like that. He wouldn't do that. They don't do that. But she was just asking about like spiritual questions, and a lot of the questions she was asking, she would need to be in the process of elevation in order to, receive some of the information that she wanted. She really wanted like a lot of, like she wanted some deep sacred information. And I'm not going to say he was telling her anything, but the information he was telling her was like very surface level. It's like if I tell you, oh yeah, you could make a healing tea, right? And say if that healing tea has 10 ingredients, but I only tell you 2. But you don't know that it really has 10, but I only tell you 2. That's essentially what he was doing. He was only giving her 2 out of the 10 ingredients. And when she left, she was so happy though. She gave him an offering, and she was so happy. And when she left, I asked him like, why did he do that? And he was like, he said, something about you is you are patient. He said, for some people, you just have to give them a little bit so that they keep coming back. He explained that for a lot of people, when they are coming into this journey of African traditional religion and African spirituality, a lot of them are so hungry, they're famished. And you just got to give them a little bit of bread so that they can feel full, and then they'll go away. And then they're going to get hungry again, and they're going to come back to the people who fed them a little bit. Right? And they'll do the same process over again. Until they eventually realize that in order to get full and remain full, they need to stay and eat and finish their plate. And in the moment, I was like, I got what he was saying. I was like, okay, I see what you're saying. Like, she needs to be patient and be willing to sit down while you cook the meal and plate it and finish her plate so that she can be full long term. And then really she can watch you and learn how to cook, because then he connected it to that. Like, what she really needs to learn is she needs to learn how to cook the food. But she doesn't want to learn how to cook. It's almost like the biblical thing of, you teach a man, you give a man 2 fish and he eats for a day. You teach a man how to fish and he eats for a lifetime. It's like that type of thing. But some folks don't want to learn how to fish. And that's essentially what it is. So he was explaining that, like, you just give them a little bit and they'll come. She's going to come back. But she needs to think that she's full, go out, walk away, and go suffer some more. And then she's going to keep doing that and coming back until eventually she realized that she needs to sit down and be patient and learn how to cook and then finish her plate. You see what I'm saying? And that's what the process of initiation is. That's what the process of finding out who has your head is. It's the long process. It's really about, are you willing to come, learn how to cook, plate the food, and finish your plate? Are you willing to do that? Now, for those of you who are not, for those of you who do not desire to go through the process of doing the shadow work and gaining knowledge of self and, studying all the Orishas and starting the initiation process and waiting till you get all your lekkes and all of that stuff and finding godparents and all. For those of you who don't want to go through all of that and you're like, no, I want to know who is my Head Orisha now. Let me go ahead and tell you the shortcut process of what you can do. So the shortcut process of finding your head is very quick and simple, and it's a shortcut process. So essentially, what you are going to do is you are just going to go get a reading. Right? You're going to go get a reading. You may feel like you know who has your head. You may have had a dream, which, just to be clear, and I said this in the Oshun video, just because you had a dream about an Orisha does not mean that Orisha has your head. But if you are adamant and you feel like you had a dream about this Orisha and this Orisha has your head, if you feel like you got signs that this Orisha has your head, or even if you have no idea of who has your head, but you just want to know and you feel like you have to know right now, you can just go get a reading. There are people who will do a reading for you and they will tell you who your head is, right? So you can just pay some money. You can sit on the mat, go to the mat, and they will do divination, right? Even within a long process, when you find out who your head is, you will find out through divination, right? So there are some people who will say there's some process where, you know, the Orisha will attach to you, but that's just only confirmation. That's only like a secondary after you do your divination. So through the initiation, you will have divination, and they will tell you who has your head. But for some people, they don't want to go through the initiation process. So the shortcut process, you find a Baba or an Iya, or Orisha or whoever, a priest, priestess, whoever, and you get them to do divination for you, and they will tell you who has your head. Shortcut process or the long process, you cannot find out who your head Orisha is without divination. People, there will be babas, there will be, you know, people who are already initiated, there will be, you know, awos, whoever, people who will look at you all the time and say, oh, I think you seem like a child of Shango, you seem like a child of Oya, you seem like a child of Ogun. These people are essentially just like taking a wild guess. They may be seeing something you have on, they may be seeing some of your behaviors or some of your attributes and saying that you seem like you are a child of this person, because that is the characteristics that you're showing right now. Those are the characteristics that you're showing in that moment. So just because someone comes to you and they tell you what they think you may be, just take it as a guess and keep it moving. Don't hop on or cling on to that, okay? Don't cling on to that. You only can find out who has your head through divination. So the shortcut process is, don't go through initiation. Don't do any of that. And you just go and you just get a reading. You pay some money and you get a reading. And they will, you know, do the work and tell you who has your head and tell you how. Sometimes they'll tell you how to move forward with that information. And then sometimes they just send you about your merry way with your 2 ingredients, and you can go and pretend to be full. You know what I'm saying? But then you gonna come back. Okay. And that's usually what it is. You're gonna pay them some money for the divination. They're gonna tell you who has your head, and you're gonna be so excited and thinking that you know something. And then you're gonna go on a journey of practicing and doing all of this. And then you gonna go and be going through some things, and you're gonna come back to them because they gave you them little crumbs of bread and you felt full for a moment, you know. And that's what it is. That's what I'm saying. See what I'm saying? Okay, you see where I'm going with this. But if you want to go through the shortcut process, sure, go sit and go get a reading, go let somebody tell you who your head is, and that's the shortcut process. And I mean, you can get this done anywhere. If I don't want to say, I was going to say some specific names of places, but I ain't going to say no specific names of places. But if you from the South, you from Georgia, you probably know the area that I'm talking about. It's a whole place that you can go to. And there are many Babas and Iyas out there giving readings to tourists and telling them who their head is. Okay, so you can do that. And that is completely okay for you, if that's what you want to do. You know what I'm saying? Now, with the shortcut process, this is a tip that I'm going to give you for the shortcut process. Go to several Babas and, or several Orishas and get several different divinations. So if you don't do initiation and you don't, get divination through initiation and things, and you just want to go and you want to find a Baba or find an Orisha and you want to just pay them and find out who has your head, cool. But go to several different ones for confirmation. Okay, first off, make sure that your Ori is clear. Make sure that you are well. Take a spiritual bath. Cleanse yourself. Make sure that you are fully clear before you go to divination. But go to have different divinations. But in order to do this is the only thing. When you get divination, you are getting people to tap into your crown, to tap into your Ori tap into your head, right? You need to be very careful about that because basically you're opening your energy up. So just be very mindful about that you're opening your energy up to multiple people. And these are people you don't know because they're not your godparents. You haven't studied them. You haven't studied under them. You don't really know their history. This is essentially a stranger that you don't know. You don't know their intention. You don't know their energy. You're just coming to them, you know what I'm saying, for a reading, and you're opening up your energy and you're saying, dig into me. So you do have to be very careful about that. But in order to receive confirmation, if you're on the shortcut path, you need to go to several different people to get confirmation about who has your head. Okay. Long-term path, again, knowledge yourself, studying every Orisha, gain knowledge yourself, do your shadow work, go find good godparents, go find a good Ile, find a good community wherever you live, start your initiation process, process. You get your divination, find out who has your head. Depending on the ATR, for some of them, you don't find out who has your head until you are in initiation as a priest or a priestess, okay? Now, that's the long process. Short process, you could go find a random Orisha, go find a random Babalawo, and allow them to, you pay them some money, you allow them to do divination. They tell you who has your head, and you go to multiple to cross-reference and get confirmation. So that's the sum, okay? Long process, short process. It's up to you which one you want to take. And I know that, a lot of people are like, but it's hard. A complaint I hear a lot. It's hard for me to find a Orisha community where I live. I live in a small town. You may have to travel to the larger town of where you live. You may have to go through Facebook and, find a community via Facebook. But the thing with social media is you have to be careful because there are a lot of scammers. You may need to save your money and actually go to the country where that religion started. If you're looking into Santeria, you need to go to Cuba. If you're looking into a Khan, you need to travel to Ghana. If you're looking into Ifa, you may need to travel to Nigeria. But even then, you still have to be careful because, as I told y'all before, religion is religion is religion. And there are scammers in every religion, as y'all can see by these crazy, wild fake babalawos who be DMing people and soliciting them for readings and stuff like that. Like, there's scammers in every religion, but that may be what it takes for you. And also know that, y'all, every path ain't for everybody. You know what I'm saying? Like, every path ain't for everybody. I know ATRs are tempting and it sounds good. A lot of people are really just more or less looking for a community as opposed to being a part of an ATR, which, for a lot of people who don't want to go through initiation and they hear about initiation, they like, look, I ain't trying to do all that stuff. Like, that's cool, y'all. It's not meant for everybody. It's also not meant for everybody to know who their head Orisha is. It's not meant for everybody, and that is okay. You will still have a beautiful, successful life. Some people just need to practice spirituality. They need to practice, wellness. Some people practice hoodoo, where there's not a strenuous initiation process. You know what I'm saying? So you might want to just study hoodoo. You know what I'm saying? Like, if all of this sounds too much and too daunting and too scary for you, there are other alternatives that may be more aligned with who you are and what you really desire. And don't be afraid to go with those. Those are beautiful communities as well. So overall, y'all, long process, short process, whatever you choose to do, just do what's best for you. Whichever pathway you choose to go down the path that is for your wellness. Okay? I'll see y'all soon. Much peace, much light, and I'll see y'all. Peace.